My belief system as a hunter is that I am a conservationist. I go through all the legal means to collect information to get my tags. I purchase them legally, I draw for them legally, and I help keep populations in check, which is our biggest job in the ecosystem as top predators.
You get out into the wilderness, and if you're going to take a shot, you make sure it's a good shot.
I help the environment, and I provide food for myself and my family.
I look at my role as a hunter as someone who gets out in the wilderness. We keep the populations in check, so if the deer and elk overgraze, then there's not enough for other animals, and they start starving, which is an awful thing when they start starving and you see them dropping in the wintertime.
Like the Game and Fish being a government entity, mistakes happen all the time. But that's why there are annual checks, and that's why the seasons only run for a certain amount of time. If they ran for the whole year, let's say, or anything like that, the animals would not have time to replenish, and the Game and Fish understand that. So that's why there's certain dates set for seasons, like deer season, elk season, duck season, etc. Just because they have to have a chance to rejuvenate and repopulate. People run around with bottles of Jack and shotguns and act like they're hunters, but they're not anything more than just people that have guns to stick it to the liberals, and that's not the point. Hunters, people like myself and like my family, we own weapons because it is part of our Second Amendment rights, and it is just something we can do, and it's something we can have to protect our families and to provide for our families. Hunting for me is a way of life. It is a way that I was raised. It was a huge part of my upbringing. We would go out every year and track animals, harvest animals. I mean, before we were landowners, it was up in the mountains for several days, up at the cabin. It was really fun. We'd get up early, we'd go hike around, we'd try and find them kind of your old-fashioned way, spot and stalk. We were archery hunters back then, and go up in the mountains, you'd see what you could find, check your trail cameras, and then we'd go back to the cabin and we'd eat breakfast, and we'd all pass out and sleep for the middle of the day, and then we'd go out in the evening and do the same thing until it was dark. And then I remember like moonlight hikes back to the truck in the middle of friggin' nowhere, no cell service, no cameras back in the day, and it was just about being in nature and like seeing what was out there. And it's very primitive when you're out there in that way. So there's a huge difference between hunting and poaching. Poaching is the act of these crazy people running out with guns, with whatever, and killing animals, whether they use it for meat or they're just doing it for sport or anything like that. They just run out, they do it. They don't do it legally. They don't do it within the quota. Sometimes people poach young animals that they don't have tags for because they weren't paying attention to what they were hunting.
You know, if you're poaching a doe, you could be taking two more animals out if she's carrying.
Sometimes people poach young animals that they don't have tags for because they weren't paying attention to what they were hunting.
It's just very frowned upon. It's an awful thing to poach an animal.
And if there is a reason, that's why there are regulated tags, regulated quotas, regulated seasons for every animal, because they have to have a chance to like survive and regroup. Hunting is going through hunter safety, learning how to handle a gun, bow, crossbow, slingshot, what have you, and going out, getting your tags during season, legally through the system, and doing it that way. That is hunting, and it is providing for your family. It's obeying laws. It's keeping the environment in balance, and it's like having a good time.
Especially, I know when I was in high school, we had to pass some courses, and one of them was actually, they call it orienteering, where you'd take a compass and a topographic map, and you'd have to find different parts around the school and into the woods around the school. And it was actually really fun, and I think that is what made me think that I could actually be a hunter, and go into the wilderness, I have a topographic map and a compass, I can find my way back. And there have been times years back before GPS that I was in the woods, in a wilderness area, and lost my bearing. I pulled out my compass and looked at the map, started walking along one way that I knew where the camp was, and I was able to get there within 15 or 20 feet. Mostly here in Wyoming, people are positive. They're pro hunting because nobody likes to see an animal starve. People here tend to understand why you hunt, whereas I was originally from Massachusetts, and back there's a more liberal way of thinking, and they don't so much like hunters. But if you explain the part of it where you maintain the population of the animals, they're not going to be jumping out in front of your car, eating your garden. People tend to open up a different way of looking at you, whereas before some people just think that you're out there to kill, and that's not the only reason people are out.